This week we'll be reading Henry James's short story, The Beast in the Jungle, and Charlotte Perkins Gilman's short story, The Yellow Wallpaper. He was at all events destined to become aware, little by little, as time went by, that she was all the while looking at his life, judging it, measuring it, in the light of the things she knew, which grew to be at last, with the consecration of the years, never mentioned between them save as the real truth about him. That had always been his own form of reference to it, but she adopted the form so quietly that, looking back at the end of a period, he knew there was no moment at which it was traceable that she had, as he might say, got inside his idea, or exchanged the attitude of beautifully indulging for that of still more beautifully believing him. Henry James, The Beast in the Jungle. And an excerpt from Charlotte Perkins Gilman's The Yellow Wallpaper reads, "It is the strangest yellow, that wallpaper. It makes me think of all the yellow things I ever saw. Not beautiful ones like buttercups, but old, foul, bad yellow things. But there is something else about that paper. The smell. I noticed it the moment we came into the room, but with so much air and sun it was not bad. Now we have had a week of fog and rain, and whether the windows are open or not, the smell is here. It creeps all over the house. I find it hovering in the dining room, skulking in the parlor, hiding in the hall, lying in wait for me on the stairs. It gets into my hair." Henry James is the first writer we're going to talk about for this week. He has been firmly established as one of America's greatest novelists, critics, and literary stylists. He's known more as an observer than a participator, both in his life, and this ends up being a recurring theme in his fiction. His short story, The Beast in the Jungle, tells the harrowing story of a failed life. And he was often called a self-conscious writer. He was very comfortable in the realm of the psychological, and you'll notice his characters in his story observe more than participate. While you're reading Henry James for the week, I want you to pay attention to the way the action unfolds in the story. So much of what happens here is shown in dialogue, or through the inner dialogue of John Marcher. And while you're reading, I want you to ask yourself, what do you think of the way May, who's the woman character in the story, reveals herself to John? What's their relationship? And then also, what's the beast that Marcher refers to throughout the story? What kinds of feelings do you have for these characters? And by the end, who do you come out feeling more empathy towards? I'm curious what you think James does that makes it that way. And pay attention, these notes and observations will help you with your discussion board post for the week. Charlotte Perkins Gilman wrote The Yellow Wallpaper as a way to address a cure that was prescribed to her by a doctor, who said the only way out of her sadness was to rest and live as a domestic a life as far as possible, to have only 2 hours of intellectual life a day, and never to touch pen, brush, or pencil again as long as she lived. As a writer, as an intellectual, this was devastating to her, and she resisted it and rallied against it, and she did it in her life, and she did it in her writing. Published in 1892, The Yellow Wallpaper portrayed the role of women in society in a new light and quickly became a feminist manifesto. And Gilman herself resisted the societal norms for women and became a pioneer who tackled, years before the women's movement, gender inequality. While you're reading Charlotte Perkins Gilman, I want you to underline lines that you like. I want you to ask yourself, what are ideas that she expresses in her work that seem revolutionary to you? What are writerly moves that she makes that seem particularly effective or ineffective? And what do you really think happens at the end of this story? Imagine Perkins Gilman writing this story at the time that she wrote it. What do you think the reactions she got were? What was your reaction? This short story is often referred to as a gothic horror story. Why do you think it would have this reputation? These are the notes and observations that will help you with your discussion board post for the week. Happy reading and have a great week, everybody.